I'll go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, I'm Curtis Rosol, Business Development Engineer here at Mars Air Systems. Today we're going to be talking about the use of air curtains specifically within convenience stores. So I'm going to touch on a couple of benefits. Mainly, it's going to be focusing on how can we increase the food safety element of convenience stores while at the same time decreasing operational costs. So that's going to kind of be the theme of the presentation today. Quick look at the agenda. So we're going to start off with just a brief overview on convenience stores and their position in the food service market, kind of what we're seeing, today. Brief background on air curtains, just to kind of give you guys a refresher, those of you who are familiar with them, or maybe not super familiar, just give you a brief background on air curtains. Some of the benefits they provide. I'll show you guys a couple quick videos on just kind of reinforcing their effectiveness. It's kind of pretty cool there. Then we'll jump into some common installations and applications of air curtains, again, specifically kind of focusing on those C-store, convenience store opportunities. Go into some research and testing that we've been doing. That's going to kind of focus on some of our clean air or newer technology products, and then finish out with some optional features we can provide, and then some resources that are available to you guys, whether you're looking to quote or make a selection or need help with whatever your air curtain application may be. And then we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A as well. So those of you that have sat in on these before, again, it's going to be pretty similar with structure, hopefully going to be around that 20-minute mark, and then like I said, we'll have some time at the end for questions. All right, so starting out again, just a brief overview of what we're seeing with C-stores in the food service market, right? So current research has actually shown that C-stores are competing directly with quick serve restaurants and grocery stores' food service sales. I think a lot of times people really just still kind of see those convenience stores as more just grabbing a drink or grabbing like a protein bar, something like that. But like I said, the research is showing that they're getting more into the hot and ready or built to order food items, and that's really starting to compete into like I said, those quick service opportunities. So with that, that's ultimately bringing up a couple of challenges, right? First and foremost, you're going to be managing an expanded food service offering. So obviously that's going to mean you're going to have more food inventory you're going to have to keep track of. But more importantly, that's just going to be more food items that you're going to have to make sure are within sanitation standards. So that's going to become one challenge with this increase in the market. And then another one is operational costs. So, as these convenience stores, I think the idea there is they really kind of want to become more of this one-stop shop. I think especially ones that are connected to gas stations, right? A lot of times it used to just be, hey, I'm filling up gas at the pump, and it's just more of a, pay there and go. But as they're expanding this food service offering, that's going to mean more traffic in and out of the C-store, and with that, maintaining building temperatures is going to be a lot more important, whether that's just from an energy savings perspective or, really more importantly, making sure there's no food spoilage if those temperatures get too high. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides here, but that's kind of the general idea of what we've been seeing. Quick background on air curtains. So air curtains, been around for a long time. Their initial use was really for fly control over back kitchen doors. Those of you that have been in the food service industry for a while, you've probably heard the term fly fan. I think that term's still used quite a bit actually today, and that really came about just from that initial application of using air curtains for fly control. And then obviously as the technology improved, more people began to manufacture them, more research opportunities and testing came out. The additional applications and benefits kind of grew from there. But that's sort of how the air curtains, I guess, started, and then how we've sort of built or grown the applications from there. Quick look at some of the benefits that they can provide. So first and foremost, increase food safety. Again, make sure we're maintaining building temperatures there, making sure reducing the amount of spoilage ultimately that can occur, and then keeping flying insects and dust debris out. Enhancing indoor air quality and overall customer experience. improving customer, employee, and product safety, and that's really important, especially when we're talking about cold storage or freezer applications where condensation can build up, on the doors or really on the floor, because that can be slipping hazards, and then just general pathogens as well, right? That's a safety factor too. Repelling dirt, dust, debris, and flying insects, reducing building heating and cooling costs, again, maintaining building temperatures there. And then decreasing food spoilage and waste, right? So the more that we can maintain temperatures, the less food potential spoilage that can occur. And then lastly, sanitize with UVC and HEPA filtration. I'll talk a little bit more about those benefits as well, in a few slides here. All right, so quick again look, just a reinforcement. I got a couple videos here of the really just how air curtains work. I know we're just blowing air, so a lot of times it's hard to see the benefits when we're just moving air. So I think this is one good example. This is our smoke test here. As you can see, it's simulating a drive-through door, and we claim air curtains are about 80% effective. As you can see there, it's doing a pretty good job, preventing that smoke, which is supposed to obviously kind of represent, pathogens or dirt, dust, debris from getting in through that window there. Similarly, this is a video of a fly simulation. We're actually using it's a toy helicopter, which I would like to think is actually quite a bit bigger than your general fly application. And as you can see there, the air curtain's knocking it down pretty well on the left, and then on the right there, just another angle of the same application. So, again, just visual representations of an application that's somewhat hard to see. That's kind of why I like to show those in the PowerPoint. Okay, let's jump into some installation locations. So again, focusing on convenience stores. Really quickly, I'm going to go through these one at a time. But I like to just show this. This is actually a rendering of a convenience store. Now, this is available on our website. So if you guys go to I think it's the Learning Center tab, and then there's an industries section under that Learning Center. We have a grocery and convenience store page, and this is actually it's an interactive rendering, so you can click on the plus signs that you see there, and each plus sign, it'll kind of bring up the application in the C-store, and then really what benefits the air curtains can provide in those applications. So really cool tool there. Again, I would recommend maybe after the PowerPoint, you guys check that out. And again, just a really cool interactive way to get a little bit better idea of what models to use and where, within C-stores. So again, kind of walking through them one at a time here. First and foremost, probably the biggest application is going to be, those back receiving doors, like I talked about, kind of the bread and butter of air curtains. This is it's a Torchy's taco. For those of you, in the South and Texas area, probably familiar with those. But again, this is probably one of our most popular applications in food service. This is one of our NH2 units. So if you need a unit that complies with NSF 37, we do have those available, again, for backdoor, mainly fly control in this application. Probably the second most popular is going to be customer entrances. So you kind of have two different flavors here, I guess. On the left is probably the most typical customer entrance application. So an interior installation. That's actually one of our low pro units. Typically that's for just indoor temperature control. Really cool thing with the low pros, they do come with variable speed knobs on the bottom. So if you wanted to, control the airflow on those units, pretty easy to do from the unit itself. And then on the right there is it's an exterior installation, again, customer entrance. I believe this was a grocery store application. This is our standard 2 unit, so kind of one size up from the low pro. Typically, that's probably more focused towards flying insect control, just because a little bit bigger motor, a little bit bigger blower wheels, you're going to get a little bit more airflow, which, like I said, is typically more recommended for flying insect control. Quick note with exterior installations. First and foremost, we always recommend you guys install the air curtains on the inside of the building if possible. But for whatever reason, if you can't, as long as the unit's an unheated unit, so no heat element to it, and it's covered by some sort of awning or something like that, not exposed to the elements, you can do an exterior installation. And we do have weatherproof covers available as well if you needed to buy one separately. Again, if you wanted to do an exterior installation, but you didn't have that awning available at the job site. Next application here is going to be architectural openings, really more in that, again, customer entrance environment as well. So on the left there, that's our one of our Phantom series units. So as you can see there, it's actually installed. It's recessed in the ceiling. A lot of times, architects really like those. I know, because you can't see the air curtain, but you still can get the benefit of having one installed. So I know a lot of architects like using those. Or if you just don't have space directly above the door, which is probably the most ideal installation location. As you can see there, no space between the top of the door and the ceiling or soffit there. In which case you can do something like the Phantom unit, which is recessed. And then on the right is again another customer entrance. That's our Quiet Pro unit. So as you can see there, that's it's an anodized aluminum. It's a sleeker look, right? A little bit. It's got an elliptical shape to it, so it looks a little bit nicer above the opening. And really, the best thing with the Quiet Pro is it's about 25% quieter than comparable units. So one of the biggest complaints I think we get with air curtains in general is noise. So if that is something you or your customer is really concerned about, especially like I said at customer entrances where you have a lot of people coming in and out, Quiet Pro is a really good option, to kind of help reduce the noise output with the air curtains. Open air merchandiser. So this is a really, really cool, really beneficial application, especially in convenience store applications. So I guess just really briefly, right? Typically, I think how these air merchandisers work for the most part is, a lot of times they're taking the cold air and that's getting pushed out or blown out from the top of the merchandiser, and then it gets sucked in ultimately through the bottom. So that cold air is just kind of dropping down through the merchandiser. Now, the problem that can occur, right, especially in an application like you see here, if that merchandiser's close or even relatively close to that front door, a lot of times, especially again with high traffic applications, if that door's open and it's hot outside or even worse, hot and humid outside, that hot humid air can obviously get into the building as that door stays open, and it can make its way to that open air merchandiser. So installing an air curtain above the entry door like you see there, obviously, like I was talking about before, you're getting the benefit of maintaining building temperatures, but really more importantly, you're saving the food that's in that open air merchandiser, right? Because the last thing you want is if that open air merchandiser or the food in that merchandiser gets too hot, temperature gets too high, not only are you worrying about building operation costs, but now you're worrying about spoilage as well, and that's wasted food, which means loss of money. So open air merchandisers and using air curtains, especially when they're around entry doors, I think is a really important application, especially in that space, and definitely something to consider. And then obviously there's the flying insect control and dirt, dust, debris element as well, kind of intrinsic to having that air curtain, in above that front door to prevent any of that getting there as well. Moving on here, so pass-through windows, again, pretty common in the food service space. On the left there, that's a walk-up service window, again, one of our low pros, installed outdoors there. So again, as you can see, it's covered by some sort of awning, so we're okay, able to do that. No heat option there as well. On the right is more of a typical drive-through window. So again, one of our low pros. I think that one has electric heat on it, so probably installed in a cold weather area. And really the big thing there is, especially as that door's opening and closing a lot, mainly first off for the employees' comfort, that's constantly there. You don't really want cold air blowing down on you, so that electric heat element will kind of help prevent that wind chill effect on him. And then obviously you want the air curtain in general, so you don't want any of those really anything from the outside getting in through that window, car exhaust or dirt, dust, pollens. Typically drive-through windows open up directly to the kitchen, so really important that we make sure those are covered and protected as well. Cold storage, more of a I'll call it engineered application, but the saying I like to use with cold storage is the bigger temperature difference, the bigger problem you might have, and the more important an air curtain would probably be to have in these situations. So really the two applications with cold storage, we have coolers and freezers. Just touch on them briefly. First off, cooler applications. So really with coolers, I think there's a few benefits. First and foremost, I think the biggest thing with coolers is you can get rid of those plastic strips. Time and time again, I've seen problems with the strips. I've been on a few job sites where they have strips, and those things just get really dirty. They get torn. It becomes a health hazard at some point if you got, bacteria growth on them. A lot of times what ends up happening is people that are doing deliveries, they end up just parting the strip curtains, and then, it's kind of defeating the purpose at that point anyway. You're still losing the cold air. So it's a really good, and air curtains, a really good contactless way to get rid of those and still provide, the same, if not better, protection of thermal escape from the cooler. So air curtains can get installed on the inside or the outside of the cooler. In this application, it's on the outside. This is actually one of our VHP units. I believe it was a hospital application. So that's one of our Clean Air series units. I believe it has HEPA filter, UV light, and a bipolar ionizer. So you're sanitizing the air as well as having that separation. But if you wanted to do something like, more focused on preventing bacteria, mold growth from inside the cooler, which again, I'll talk about in a little bit here. You can do something like one of our UV units, which sanitizes that air, and you can install it on the inside. So it really kind of depends on what you're looking to accomplish with the air curtain, but it can be installed on the inside or the outside of the cooler. Freezer applications, those can only be on the outside. We don't want to cause any snowstorms. I don't think that'll help anyone here. So freezer's always on the outside of the freezer. A lot of times we use electric heat, and that's really just to help. It might seem counterintuitive, but that actually helps prevent frost, ice buildups, either on the door or, more importantly, on the floor, which can become a safety hazard, right? We don't want people slipping or forklifts slipping around and crashing into the sidewalls or things like that. So a little bit more uncommon, but another application of air curtains, we use them with lavatories as well. So if you're looking to, kind of prevent any odors from getting into the convenience store side of the building, we do air curtains over lavatories as well. We actually, other than just separating odors, we actually can kill odors with our UVC unit, which I believe is the next slide here. So a lot of times we'll use our UVC unit in odor control applications because, not only are we separating those odors, but the UVC bulb can actually help, kill and neutralize those odors as well. So in the application like you see here, right, and any odors that might get into that back kitchen area or restaurant area from that garbage can, it can kind of get cycled through the air curtain, and then that, like I said, that UVC light will help neutralize those odors. Last application here, car wash systems. So not super common for us, but another application, and a lot of times they're, obviously intertwined with convenience stores as well. Common question we get with car wash systems is, hey, can we use air curtains to dry the cars? We don't really install them mainly for that application. I would call that a supplemental benefit to the air curtain. Typically what we use, the air curtains, in car wash systems is really for the entry and the exit, and that's really, especially in cold weather areas, it's to prevent that cold air from getting in and possibly freezing, the water in there. Or if you have workers in there, it's again an employee comfort element as well. If it's really cold in there, it's going to be a lot more difficult to work in that cold environment. But like I said, drying the cars is kind of a supplemental benefit to that as well. Some research and testing. So again, this is more around our UVC units. Those of you that are interested in that, we've done a couple studies with them. This example here, this was a walk-in cooler experiment. So we had a UVC unit in a cold storage room, had the UV function of that air curtain off, and we put in a set of Petri dishes for 7 days, took them out, and this was the mold bacteria growth that we saw after that 7 days. Which was pretty interesting, but kind of repeated the experiment with the UV function on. So turn the UV function on, put in a fresh set of Petri dishes, and we actually left them in there for 2 weeks and saw virtually no growth, while that UV air curtain was running. So that kind of led to a second study, kind of similar, right? Because no one's selling petri dishes, I don't think. So we wanted to use something a little bit more, applicable. We did strawberries. We actually recreated this test at our factory, and again got very similar results using the strawberries. And we're actually conducting a third test with the UV units, again, just to get as much empirical data, as much realistic lifelike data as possible. Couple optional features we can provide. So, we have more than this, but these are some of the main ones. 304 stainless steel, we get that request a lot if you're in a corrosive environment or something like that. We do have heat options available. Electric, steam, hot water, gas, again, kind of helps prevent that wind chill effect. Washdown construction, whether you're in a factory or maybe a food processing plant, we can do washdown units. Tamper-proof, that's typically more for high schools or prisons or something like that, where you don't want anybody else tampering with the unit. We can do that. And then lastly, clean air series, which I kind of talked about, our UV unit, but we do have HEPA filters available, and then we also do bipolar ionization as well, if that's what's needed. Lastly, just some tools available for you. We do have a product selector program on our website. Really easy to get to from our homepage. Highly recommend you guys check that out if you're looking just for a starting point about hey, what air curtain do I need? I think that's the number one starting point for you there. ROI calculator. So those of you that are interested in return on investment, energy savings, right? How fast can I get my money back? Things like that. Our ROI calculator tool, we just relaunched it. It works really well, so would recommend you checking that out. If you need specifications, we do have that on. You can pull that from AutoQuotes, Master Spec or Spec Link, and you can obviously reach out to our internal team as well if you needed those jobs specifically tailored. Drawings, we do have CAD blocks in KCL available, and then we're on BIM objects, and we do have Revit files. And then quoting, again, AutoQuotes and Specify are available for quoting. So that's the end of the presentation. Again, I thank you everyone for your time. And then at this point, I guess I'll let, I'll open it up to questions, and I guess I'll let, I'll turn it back to Jasmine to moderate those.
Thank you so much, Curtis, and great job. So we do have some questions here in the chat. Question number 1, will air curtains disrupt open air merchandisers if they are placed too close to the air curtain?
Yeah, so and I'll let the engineering team can feel free to chime in too. My take on that is, obviously you don't want to put it right next to the door, but I think the most important thing is that hot, warm air. That's gonna, if you have nothing in front of that door, that's gonna really get into at least the middle of the building, and the air curtain is just really gonna shut that down. So if you have, even a little bit of distance or enough distance, that air curtain's not gonna affect it at all, and it's using the interior air. So if anything, it's just cycling that interior air. It's not bringing in the hot air from the outside.
All right, thanks for that. All right, question number 2, if you use air curtains to cover doors in food storage areas and other entrances, is there a limit to how many air curtains you would use in the space before the power usage becomes too high to justify their use?
Yeah, I kind of understood that question. I think that would sort of depend on the building application, how many doors, and that's probably something that would be, again, you can plug into our ROI tool as well, to kind of get a better idea of what you're looking for there.
Hey, Kurt, if you don't mind me answering that question, are you saying that
go ahead.
Putting too many air curtains will negate the savings from the building? But I think what the idea of the air curtain, guys, is that you're reducing the Q, which is the volumetric flow rate across the door, by using air curtains, and the power consumed by the air curtain is so small, typically 1 horsepower or below. So the amount of power it requires to power that up versus the losses across that opening, which is 100%, you're reducing it now to 20%. So you have a 10 by 10 door. Let's just say there's 5,000 1,000 CFM that you're losing or gaining heat through that door. Now you're minimizing that. So it's not going to be a negative issue as long as the application is good and you size the air curtain properly. Like I said, it's the potential of loss that you're saving, meaning that what is escaping is being prevented, and that's what your savings is, and it's going to be way, way more than what the air curtain is consuming. So I hope that answers your question.
Question number 3, what is your partner discount? Is there a price list for your partners?
Partner discount. Assuming meaning as like a customer. Yeah, that would depend. I would say reach out to myself or Frank if you're looking to, become a customer, and then we'll kind of take those, as they come in.
Yeah. Sorry, Kurt. Yeah, we also have local reps all over the country that represent us in terms of providing you quotes and all the resources that you need to help your team. So if you don't know one, like I said, you can contact Mars, and we can connect you based on your zip code. But you can also go on our website and request it, and then they will actually assign you a rep based on your location.
And yeah, usually that's a good point. Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead, Kurt.
No, I was going to say that's a good point too. I would definitely recommend starting on the website, because if you request a quote, that'll automatically get pushed to the local rep. So that's probably the easiest way to kind of get started.
Yeah, we like the local rep because they're local. They're in your time zone. They probably know you already. If you're a HVAC or food service or any in the big industry, they'll know who you are already.
Yes, and I've also included the Locate a Rep tool link in the chat as well, in case you're interested in looking for the local rep in your area. All right. We do have, I saw one other question here. What are the control options available for the air curtain?
Control options. Again, I can let the engineering team talk more on that. I'll let the engineering team take that one, actually.
All right, Kurt. So, yeah, okay. The most important control option for an air curtain is just the plain on-off switch. I believe 99% of our air curtains that we ship out are ordered with a door switch. So you can have a mechanical switch, magnetic switch. There are many different types of switch for different types of applications, but switch is what I would recommend for pretty much all doors. For a high traffic doors, for most of the convenience stores, the doors are it's going to be a high traffic door, at least during certain times of the day. I would also recommend you getting some kind of a time delay functionality. In a nutshell, what it means is during high traffic, the time delay feature will reduce the number of on-off cycles. It's not only will increase the life of the air curtain, it will also be much more less annoying whenever there's an on-off cycle. If there's a clerk or someone working close to the opening, it won't be as you won't have more noise just because of the on-off cycle. Besides those two control features, everything else is a wish list. If you have a spec that you need to comply with, go ahead and get it. But if not, just go with the door switch and a controller with time delay functionality. And just to refresh you, the audience here, we do have a new controller called unit mounted controller. That's a controller. It's one of the cheaper, more cost-effective controller where the controller is mounted inside the air curtain. Comes with single point connection. What it means is the installer can just get the air curtain, install it, and could do the main connection for main wire and the door switch right in the air curtain. So there will be less labor during installation as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, just to summarize what my colleagues have said, basically, we like to keep it simple. Like Naga said, 95% of our application, it's an air curtain with a switch, line voltage 99-014. People that know what that is, so it's pretty simple. We do have control panels available. We also have solid state controls available, fully integrated with your iPhone. or mobile device, control it 100%. But those are more complex controls that tie into BACnet, etc. And again, this is why we like local reps, so we know exactly what you need. They'll reach out to you and connect with you to understand your project, and then they can then connect with the Mars team like Naga and his team and kind of customize a solution for you. Okay, so a lot of different options.
I think we have room for one more question. So question here states, any comments on competition or how Mars differs from the rest? I work on a market where Biddle and EnerShield are popular. Please advise.
Yeah, so that's I'll start with and then everyone, I guess you guys can chip in, but you know, first and foremost, I think our biggest advantage we have, service is really big. I think Mars has probably the best service in the industry. We also, air curtains is all we do. So this is kind of our specialty. So I think when it comes to performance, and really at the end of the day, right, if price is all people kind of care about, you know, the saying we like to say is, hey, you might buy 3 of those air curtains before our one stops running, right? So I think it's really important, the performance aspect of it. But, you know, again, if anyone else wants to chime in, I think we've probably done a whole other webinar on competitive advantages. So that's probably something we'll do again down the road.
So Kurt, that question is probably from our northern neighbors. And again, I empathize with you guys with the World Series. We're from LA, so, you know, but anyway, Thermoscreen and Biddle, they're typically in Canada and Europe, of course, and very good products. You know, they have a lot of different options, like the solid state controls, architectural, but we have the same thing. Maybe you're just not familiar with our products, and we do sell quite a bit in Canada. We recently have become more astute or more in the architectural industry, where you know, Europe, it's always aesthetics and noise and heat, and just similar to Canada. But again, like Kurt said, the price sensitivity is really a big issue here in the U.S. and not as much as Europe, because in Europe it is mandated by law. You have to have it. As in the U.S., there's a regulation, but it's recommendations only. We're working on it. It's been working for a long time, but we do have similar products that they have, as well as any control options and recessed mounting. And we just introduced our first low profile phantom or ceiling mount, which is a recessed mounted unit, very small. So that's a very competitive product. You know, doesn't show, and that's what really a lot of the Europeans like. They don't want to see a lot of square edges, but we do have a lot of options again available here in the U.S. In the recent years. And I know Naga developing new ones coming up, and really excited that we've had a lot of product release in the last few years.
Hey, just to add to what Frank said, yes, we do offer all the bells and whistles that Biddle and the other manufacturers have. But from what I've observed is, you know, most of these air curtains do come with more bells and whistles than what is actually required.
Right.
As I said, 90% of the time, all you need is an air curtain and a door switch. You can have all the other control features. They are all just sizzle. Really, you don't really need all that stuff, because if it's a convenience store, you want to install an air curtain and forget about it. You're never going to go change any parameters and things like that. That is where we excel. But if you really want trying to chase a spec and trying to meet all the control features that Biddle and Thermoscreen and other air curtains offer, we do have that option as well. Yeah. And another difference between those air curtain and the Biddle and the other manufacturers is they do have something called the EC motors or ECMs. In theory, they are supposed to be more energy efficient than AC motors that we use, but in reality, that's not the case. The EC motors that the competitors use do have certain drawbacks. One of the drawbacks is the slow startup times. When the door starts to open, you want the fans to be up and running at full speed as soon as the door cracks open. EC motors will never do that. By the time the door completely opens, only then you're going to see the fan coming to full speed. But the AC motor that we offer will already be running and providing protection. The second thing is, even though in theory EC motors are going to consume less power, if you look at the spec sheets and compare the amperage, the actual current draw between Biddle and any other model that use EC motors against our products actually consume less power. So in reality, you don't even end up saving energy. So those are some of the technical aspects you can use to separate ourselves from the competition.
And again, Naga's right. What we have to look at, what is the energy consumed, right? So you have a straight line efficiency for EC motors, for those who know, usually a straight line efficiency, let's say 90%. With a regular air curtain inductive style motor, which is just a PSC or capacitor start, maybe a 68. 30% difference, but then you're using 376 watts at 1 hour a day. Your saving is really not great. It's more for if you have a 5,000 kilowatt motor, the difference there is big, of course, but we're using so small motors that it doesn't really matter as much as savings. There is a benefit, of course, in the long run, but that's going to be coming up, and it's limited. The market's limited in a number of motors, but they're figuring it out, and we're going to be right there with it. As soon as the new motors come out, we will have new products that are EC. We understand that that's the future. It's just the concept, like Naga said, it's not really a big savings in our market for the rooftop package unit pumps. That makes sense, of course. For us, not right now, but we know it's going to be headed that way. So we're planning for it, and we are having products to be released with it in the near future. Was that the last question, Jasmine?
We had one more come into the chat. It says, will any magnetic sensor switch work with the Low Pro? Does it have to be the 99-01A?
Kurt, you want to take that?
I can take that question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cody, if you want to address that.
No, so those the magnetic switches, as long as you need some sort of controller, in which case any magnetic switch will work with the controller. So whether that's the rib kit that we have available, or like Naga mentioned, our new internal controller, or a motor control panel, you do need some sort of controller in order to use one of the magnetic switches.
If that's the last question, Jasmine, if you don't mind, Curtis, I'd like to just remind everyone of the upcoming meetings that we're going to have in shows next year. And then for those who haven't seen our product, it's a great opportunity to see our product. We're excited with putting some of the new products in the booth and showing you how they work and what they look like. You can touch and feel and hear them, especially hear them. We've been, engineering been working really hard to reduce that sound volume and reduce that sound power and still have an effective air curtain. So come to ASHRAE. Stephanie's on the line. She'll tell you the dates and the booth number. I think we can send it in the chat for ASHRAE, which is for HVAC. NAFM is not on this year. We don't go to the NRA, but we will have a meeting. And also for material handling people, we are going to the IDA. So Jasmine, do you mind? And Stephanie, can you guys send the link for those, the location, our booth number in the chat, so people who are going to be at the meeting, please stop by the booth. We're doing another raffle. I think we're doing a Pebble Beach golf bag, something like that, something really nice. Come by, talk to the team, ask those questions in person. Naga is going to be there. Curtis will be there. Jasmine, Stephanie, and I, and Rajan, our supply chain VP, will be there as well if you have any other questions. So again, we'll send that in the chat. Again, there's only two big shows pretty much, which is ASHRAE in Las Vegas, and then the IDA is also in Las Vegas, right, Steph?
Yes, that's correct. We are exhibiting at the IDA Expo, which is in April, and yeah, that's also going to be in Las Vegas, and we do have a booth.
And ASHRAE is in February, right? Right around
Correct.
Super Bowl.
ASHRAE,
Always Super
yeah,
Bowl.
ASHRAE is February 2nd to February 4th at the Las Vegas Convention Center.
And again, we'll send it in the link for those interested. This year there's no NAFM, so it's an off year. But there is honor NRA will be there, but we will not have a booth. Any final thoughts, Kurt?
No, I appreciate everyone for staying on. I know we ran a little over, so I apologize. But thanks again, and we'll keep you guys posted on who won the gift cards for the raffle. So,
Thanks,
all
everyone.
right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.